Hey, there we go. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Fritz. Welcome back to my live stream. Today is April 13th, 2019, and I'm live from Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm here at CodeStock, and I'm joined by Denny DenUyl. Hey, Denny. Great to join.
Jeff.
Great to see you today.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. We got a bunch of friends in the chat room already. Look at this. We got Rhyolite out there. Robert Tables is here. Stelzy, thanks so much for joining us. Spilos. Binary Chef is just down the hall, actually. We got a number of folks here that are other streamers, other folks here at CodeStock 2019. How many years, Denny, have you guys been running CodeStock?
So this is CodeStock's 12th year, and
Okay.
it's my personal 7th year of helping to organize the conference.
So why don't you give folks a quick intro to yourself so they know who you are out there?
Okay. My name's Denny, and I'm a local developer here in Knoxville, Tennessee. I've been involved with CodeStock for 7 years now, like I said. And we are a community of volunteers that put on CodeStock. It's about trying to educate the community on latest trends, technologies, and inspire people and get them to connect with each other and build the community.
Oh, and it's tremendous when you have a good sized conference in a region that folks don't normally associate with high tech. When people think high tech, it's New York, it's Silicon Valley. But here in Knoxville, you've got the University of Tennessee right here.
Yeah.
You've got a tremendous influence, and to bring an event like this here and reach out and help folks, that's a big thing for you guys, isn't it?
It's huge. It's kind of, Knoxville is kind of this undiscovered area. Not only do we have the university, which is a major research institution, which is phenomenal, but we also have Oak Ridge National Labs right down the road here. So that connection, we have a lot of connection with them. You know, Oak Ridge also has the fastest supercomputer in the world here.
Oh.
So there's a lot of research going on around that. So we get all that tie-in. And there's a lot of undiscovered talent right in this area that we're trying to get the word out about. We're here.
Oh my gosh, you've got some international speakers here. You've got the folks from Microsoft. You've got some folks from Progress here. You've got a real good collection of speakers.
Yeah.
Bringing some of that external knowledge into the area.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. This year we've had such a tremendous response from the community and speakers coming in from all over the place. We've got a couple of folks came over from Europe this year, which is incredible. We've got all over the country, several folks from Microsoft. Thank you all very much for being here. We really appreciate you all and your support. So,
no problem. Oh my gosh. Seeing success of shows like this, right, means that, right, there's how many more software developers out there that are able to do more, accomplish great things, build cool applications. And they're not just, like I said, in those pockets of the country, in pockets of the industry. There's all kinds of places folks need software developers.
Oh, yeah. And and you're also start to see the trends toward the more rural areas growing. Because you can build this infrastructure out there, get good communications out there, and then all of a sudden you can have startups starting out in rural areas that you don't expect.
Yes, and when a startup does start in a rural area, right? They always make this joke about Apple starting in a garage, right? And in Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak's garage. It doesn't have to be someone's garage in California. It can be in somebody's spare bedroom in the middle of Tennessee or
rural
Pennsylvania.
Appalachia.
Yeah, it's cheaper for real estate. Talent's plentiful, and folks are hungry, right?
Yeah.
They want a cool job. They want to build something amazing. Very cool stuff.
Yeah.
And we're already hinting at some of the announcements that we're going to do here in just a little bit. Let's take a quick look at the chat room. There's a couple folks making some comments here. Oak Ridge, where the bomb was made, that might be a thing. Ryo Light says, prefer CodeStock to chicken stock. I don't know. There's not a chicken stock conference, is there?
If there is one, I don't know about it. So
no. So thanks so much for joining us there in the chat room. I think I'm really happy. This is my 4th CodeStock that I've been to, and every time I get to speak to more folks. The talk that I gave yesterday about .NET Core 3, really great group here. I had about 200 people in the room, and great questions, leading questions. These folks in the Tennessee area know what they're talking about. They're really smart, and like you were saying, it's a font of activity and really great folks to work with, right? Set up remote offices here and bring in and work with some of these folks.
Yeah.
That's why I like to say you want to hire remote folks.
Yeah, and actually it's a model that just recently the new company I'm with, we are completely remote. We have no office for our tech team. So all of our development and technology is remote. And even though most of us live within an hour of Knoxville, we still just don't have an office, and it's worked out well. That presents other challenges, as I'm sure you're well.
Oh gosh, yes.
But it's all about finding the right people who have the right attitude. You get them involved. They're willing to help, and it just works.
There's something about everybody being remote that you're able to literally shut off everything around you. You're working in your spare bedroom. You're working in your garage. You're working at your kitchen table, and you're able to there's the fridge right there.
Right.
You don't have somebody looking over your shoulder. Hey, Denny, I need you to do. No, you can get up and help your kids with something.
Yeah.
You got flexibility. But I don't know if you have this. I run into a problem as a remote worker where I start to feel guilty. Like, you know what I'm talking about. You, chat room, let me know if you feel this way. I end up with this guilt that, did I put in 8 hours of work today or not? And you know what? I didn't quite finish that task. I think I know what I'm doing here. You know what? After dinner, I'm just going to spend half an hour and finish this little thing, and then half an hour is like, oh, wait a sec. There's a little bit more. And I end up with this guilt. Do you feel this also?
A little bit sometimes. But what I really want is I want our team to be able to have that flexibility to, maybe go pick up the kids from school or meet them at the bus stop.
Yes.
So they can have that relationship with their family. And you know what? I think that when people have those relationships, they're a little happier. And guess what? They probably produce more for you.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So
right, and you were saying about the kids. I had the flexibility while my kids were in elementary school. They're doing the spring musical. I can get out, go see the spring musical at 9 in the morning because my team's out in Redmond. Come back, and I don't have to worry about hanging around for the evening one that all the parents are at. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on there in the chat room. Let's see if there's any questions for us to answer. Knoxville is lovely, says Ed Charbenau. I think he's right here. Hanging out downtown is so chill. I saw there's an arts festival just a couple blocks down for is it the opera in town?
It's the Rossini Festival, yeah. Okay. And it's a huge festival that's this year. And if you're in Knoxville downtown, you got to go check it out because it's really cool.
I was walking through it from the hotel, and I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So, and I saw they're playing Spamalot tonight at the Opera House. I'm like, I might grab a ticket tonight and head over there.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
We need a session hall with this on a projector, says Rhinosaurus Rex. He's actually probably right outside here. Good to see you, Ryan. This is a great channel for C# and .NET related topics. Yes, and we're going to talk about some of those in just a little bit. We're not going to write any code today. We've got a bunch of guests that are going to be joining us, and we're going to talk about all kinds of different things here. Robert Tables says, building remote teams is hard to do as well, even harder when you're usually on site. And you ad hoc have remote people that have to remember to include the remote folks in meetings and such. Do you find this? Having problems?
You know, at my previous job, we actually had teams in 2 geographic locations. And that trying to include the 2 teams, get them together and act as one, that becomes a little bit more challenging, especially when you're doing conference calls and things like that. Having the respect to take a little extra time, have some pauses so that somebody remote can get something in.
Oh, yeah.
Acknowledging who's in the room.
Exactly. And we're acknowledging you out there, Oren Novotny. We see you. There's a big announcement coming. I want to make sure we give folks a chance to join us here before our friends from Progress come over and make our announcement here in just a little bit. Already started following this channel from some of the guys from LiveCoder. Very cool. All right. I think if folks don't know about it, do you have a date for CodeStock 2020?
We do not yet.
Okay.
But it will probably be in April.
Okay.
The weekend after Easter.
So, and I notice it's conveniently lined up with the University of Tennessee orange-white practice game, right?
You know, it's kind of interesting the university doesn't call me and say, hey, we're scheduling this then. You know, I already get my date and I set it, and then they schedule, and it's like, oh, that's cool, thanks. But, and it's really, it's a great thing because it brings a lot of people in town. The only thing is sometimes hotels get a little limited. So.
But you know what? They just built a couple new hotels in town. They're really nice. And my gosh, 100,000 people are going to be watching a football game a little bit later today.
Yeah. So it's another option for people. If you bring your family in, you could go there and have
my gosh. That, Yes, absolutely. There is no green beer today, Ryan. No green beer. That's not a thing. Sorry. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Dan.
Thank you so much.
We
really appreciate you being here.
I appreciate the space here at CodeStock. And we're going to bring in our next guest.
All right.
Thanks so much. Now, there is an announcement coming. Michael, no roll tide. Sorry, we're in volunteer country here. The amount of orange and white as I was coming through the airport was amazing. So I think we're going to have Sam and Ed both join us here in just a second. Here we go. Slide over some chairs. I'll slide over just a smidge. Here we go. Sam Basu, Ed Charbenau. Good to see you, fellas.
Thanks for having us, sir.
How's it going? Good to see you, Ed.
Nice
of course,
you
know Ed Charbenau. He's another one of our live coders. You guys work for Progress, right? That's a thing. There they are. There's a Progress logo right there. And we've got a big sponsorship thing to announce today, don't we?
We do.
So do you want to introduce yourself first?
Accidentally spilled the beans.
I know, man. Accidentally.
Accidentally. I didn't
What
know
is
it was
Ed's
a secret.
stream name, please? Ed Sharp. It's you can see Ed a little bit higher up in the stream there. And I don't have the bot running. I'm going to misspell it.
CHARBENEAU.
I think I got it. There we go. There's Ed's channel. So go ahead, give a quick intro for folks who don't know you.
All right, so I'm Sam Basu. Both of us are developer advocates here at Progress Software. We have talked about CodeStock for a bit. I've personally been here to CodeStock for about 5-6 years now. Spoken here a bunch of times. I love this conference. It's a kind of perfect regional conference where you can come and spend 2 days and just get tons of quality content. Just kind of soaking them out. So I love being here, and Knoxville is wonderful.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I didn't want to say it in front of Denny, but I love coming here for the food.
Yeah.
Barbecue is amazing in town. Oh my gosh. And there's a barbecue place right on the river that I make sure I get to every year. What's the name of that barbecue place? Which one? Calhoun's. Oh my gosh, I gotta get to Calhoun's.
Tons of restaurants in Market Square.
Tons of restaurants. The cornbread at Calhoun's is amazing. No sentiment today. No, sorry, the bot isn't running. Sorry. No barbecue wars, Robert Tables. You can stay in Indianapolis there, friend. And Ed, you're a live coder. We know who you are. Gosh, what you want to give folks a quick rundown who you are?
Yep, hopefully you guys know me already, but if you don't, I work at Progress as well. I work on the Telerik brand of tools, just like Sam. Sam specializes in some different things than I do, but I specialize in the ASP.NET web stack.
Yeah.
So I work with ASP.NET MVC and Core and even web forms and
Who doesn't love web forms?
Especially brand new stuff.
Go ahead.
Blazor.
Love Blazor, right? If you haven't seen it, you can check out Ed's channel. He's doing a lot talking about Blazor, right? WebAssembly with C#.
Yep.
In the browser.
Full stack C#, so you can write your entire application in C#, and it will run on the client without any plugins using WebAssembly.
And it works in every browser, not just Edge.
Works in every browser. They actually have polyfills that will fall back to something that will patch in the WebAssembly for you if it's not supported.
Nice.
So the framework is actually really well baked right now, but is still in experimental phase. So.
Sure. Yeah, I got to imagine, right? There's a lot of stuff happening there. It's a new technology. Don't want to get over committed.
And Telerik has a brand new preview out. So 0.4 preview of the Blazor UI components just came out early last week.
Okay.
And we have about 20-something controls in there now. So we have charts and graphs in there now.
And they'll all run client-side in the browser. You can write your favorite C#, and it just works.
It's all client-side. You don't have to write any JavaScript to make any of it work.
It's both ways, right? It can also run server-side.
It can run server-side. It can run an Electron. It can run as a PWA.
Nice.
Anything that the web can do.
I love the PWAs.
Ahead of time compilation is in it now. It's in a limited fashion, but it's in there now, and it's the ASP.NET team is doing a great job ramping that up. And I just saw in the Gitter chat room yesterday, Daniel Roth told us that support for VS Code is coming.
Ooh, Visual Studio Code support for Blazor. That's pretty cool. Now,
coming soon.
That right? You can always watch stuff on GitHub and Gitter and learn about that, but we have an announcement to make. I don't have my drum roll here.
Okay, so why don't I back up for a second? Because he talked about all things web, which is exciting.
Okay, fine.
But it's all the other stuff that we also do, because like developers need to be successful in whatever enterprise apps you're building, or maybe indie developers. So we are in the business of making UI controls and frameworks.
Yes.
For .NET, for JavaScript. For all things web, if you want to do anything ASP.NET, MVC, Razor, web forms, Blazor, go talk to Ed. We make UI for just about every web platform. For the JavaScript side, we have DenUyl, which is our JavaScript framework. Started out as
the shirt,
exactly. Started out as a pure jQuery-based dependency library, but we also make components now for Angular, React, and Vue. So go render our UI however you want. We don't want to hold you back. So that's all the web story, and then enterprises also run a lot on desktop. So a couple of things we are kind of pumped about. We have been making desktop UI for a long time for WPF and WinForms and Silverlight, a little bit on the website. But all of those things are now coming to .NET Core 3. In fact, here at CodeStock, Jeff did a session yesterday on .NET Core 3. And we had a couple of folks come out and ask, is the generic stuff going to run? And yes, we actually already have .NET Core 3 support. So that's exciting. We are also investing heavily in the Xamarin Stack. So if you want to build native mobile apps with Xamarin Forms supporting more and more platforms, you can build for WPF and Mac desktop with Xamarin Forms.
And because we have .NET Standard now, you can put all your business logic in .NET Standard, share it across all that. Those great controls, user interface components, whatever platform you need. Love it. So
if you're building for web, desktop, mobile, whatever it is, and if you want to ship your apps faster, take a look at what we do. We try making you more successful. That's the whole.
Absolutely. Cool.
All right. So
we got an announcement. Let's do the announcement.
Yeah. So Microsoft Build is coming up.
Yes.
Just less than a month.
Yes.
Oh boy. It's the future.
Suspense is building.
So in less than a month, Microsoft Build is coming to Seattle, the home of Microsoft, and it's going to be a huge deal. 3.5 days of just learning all in.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Build is kind of the future-facing thing from Microsoft. Here's what's coming up next.
Oh gosh, yes.
For developers. Yes. So wonderful keynotes and lots of sessions from engineers who build the product.
I suspect you're going to see a guy named Scott will be there, of course, and the other with the red shirt will be there as well.
Multiple Scotts.
Multiple Scotts, yes. Okay.
All right, so it's exciting for developers to be able to tune in and see all of this action. But what's better is if you can actually be there in person.
I would love to be there in person.
Because that's when you
I'll be there in
to
person.
feel the energy. So
yes,
Ed and me will be there. If you are coming to build, we will likely throw a big party. We normally do the Sunday evening before we go into build. But if you do not have a ticket, and if you want to come to build, we may just have a thing for you.
Oh, do tell. Come on, man. Come on. Come on.
Do it live.
What do you got?
So we have a full build pass.
Okay.
Everything,
a full build pass.
Full build pass for a developer to come and soak in everything that build has to offer.
And we're going to put a link to that right now on the wall just below the video here. Refresh your browser. Scroll down just a little bit. There's a new panel we just added. We're going to give away a ticket to build.
Yes. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm going to sweeten the deal.
No.
If you get that ticket and you come out to build, I will give you a Blazer sticker.
And a sticker.
A Blazer sticker.
Yeah. So we'll have a booth as well. Lots of other partners. It's going to be an awesome time.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Travel is on you, but just come on down to Seattle and then you can experience all of what Build has to offer.
Everything at Build. So here, let me show you. There's a form you need to fill out. Go to the panel just below us here. You'll see a thing about Progress sends you to Build. Click that image. There's a little bit of information there about how Progress is going to be giving away this ticket, and it'll take you to this form. Go ahead and fill out the form. Just a couple of easy pieces of information, and make sure you put your Twitch ID in there so that we know you're a follower and you can get in the drawing. We're going to do the drawing. I believe the drawing will be held offline on the 24th, and we'll make an announcement on Thursday the 25th show. Oh man, I am so excited. Thank you so much, guys, for helping out with this. This is tremendous. This is a great opportunity for all of our viewers to get a chance to participate in Build. Online drawing widget? No, we won't be using the online drawing widget. We've got to do something else there to make sure that that's a thing. So all that hype. Make sure you go sign up for that right now. I know there's a lot of folks out there. Click the link, follow the show, and you could win a ticket to Build. This is tremendous. Now, Binary Chef already has the sticker, Ed, so is there another sticker? No, there's tons of stickers.
I will give him a free trial license to Teller DUI for Blazer.
That's amazing. Big applause there. Free trial. Everybody gets a free trial license. Yeah. Where would you go if you wanted to get a free trial license for the Telerik tools?
Telerik.com.
There isn't a cool extension on the end of that or anything?
Telerik.com/devcraft will get you the
biggest
trial bundle that we have.
There you go. All right.
It has everything in it. Charts, graphs, reporting components, all of the UI frameworks.
Yes. Okay, what?
Custom designed shirt.
Custom designed shirt. That's cool. Well, wait. So, and that's something that I think Telerik Progress does a really great job about.
We try.
When there's a big event, custom designed shirts that kind of commemorate the event, you're going to be able to walk away and look cool with it. Yeah. And of course, if you do win, you'll get to join me for a stream live from Build as well.
There you go.
Yeah, you'll get to sit here like these guys are right now. So a lot of hype around that. I see a lot of folks do the thing, the end-ends there in the chat room. Yeah. It's a sticker. No, Michael Jolly, it's not just a sticker. And a shirt, and no new car, Robert Tables. No.
Sam, you're going to give away your car?
No. No. We're going to give away Scott's. No, we're not giving away Scott's car. Tomchak45 asks, should I spend my time on competitive programming or start building real-world projects? Look at this. We're going to get into questions from the chat room here. Tomchak is 17 years old, has been programming for the last year. I think building real-world projects is something that folks should get into. Competitive programming doesn't feel...
But at the same time, competitive programming might teach you things that you will eventually use to build real-world things when you join the workforce.
Yes.
Challenges are good. There's a group of friends I have that do something called a global game jam.
Oh, yes.
And the really cool thing is they come up with like a topic.
Mm-hmm.
So the topic might be kind of generic, but it's like an unusual weapon. So you have to come up with a game design that incorporates in, quote, unusual weapon. So what my friends did is they came up with a game where you're a carrot and a rabbit is chasing you and your carrot is the weapon. So stuff like that really gets you thinking outside the box. So programming challenges can be really cool.
But using a carrot as a weapon.
Yeah, the guys over at
it might be dangerous.
Two Scoop Games.
Two Scoop Games.
Out of
Okay.
Louisville, they do game jams all the time, and they actually built a game for Progress Stellar that we go to some of the events with, and we can use our ninjas to fight off bugs. It's really fun.
Oh, okay.
So they do that kind of stuff all the time, and I think it's a really a good idea because it opens you up to different challenges you might not be able to come up with on your own.
I think the general practice of attending a hackathon, right? Going to a hackathon, you're not going to come away and have an amazing app that you're going to be able to say, this is great, but you might have the start of something, and it's that sense of community. And that's where I think folks benefit more, is when you can interact with the community and build something together, right? And that's when you're going to learn. Building a real-world app is great. Being in a competition is nice. You might win something, but the community bit is where...
You know what might combine these two? Like the fun of being in a competitive thing as well as shipping something. Make a mobile app.
Okay.
Yeah, it's free to kind of get in, and then you get to push your app out to the app stores. You have real users, and then you get to improve on it. So I have a lot of folks who have come to a hackathon, competitive, and you have gotten a start. Like you said, you're not going to finish an app in a day, but get a start. Get a start and include some cool features. Like all of the tools are pretty much free, and you can start making your apps intelligent. If you're building a game, you have all sorts of ammunition to build amazing things. Start somewhere and then make it a real project. Push it out to the app stores.
Okay. That's not a bad idea either. Yeah.
Or you could start a Twitch stream.
Or start a Twitch stream. That's a thing. That might be fun.
Right.
I can't hear. I didn't turn up the sound on this. Let me turn up the sound over here on.
Gotta have the sound effects.
The sound effects are on, but we can't hear it here in the room. There we go. So let's go. There's another question here from Lannon. How much are tickets to CodeStock for those who haven't gone before and curious in going in the future? Check out codestock.org. You'll find all the information about the event. And the tickets aren't as expensive as Bill, but
nowhere close.
Nowhere close.
Yeah, and if you wanted to see quality speakers who are out there speaking at the East Coast and West Coast big conferences, but you want to just drive to something that's in the Midwest, come to CodeStock.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. There's a couple of subscriptions that have come through. Moz, thank you so much for the tier 3. Oh my gosh, 11 months. That is huge. And Cheshire, thanks so much for bringing your Twitch Prime sub to me. We'll make donations to Veterans Who Code. So each quarter I have a different charity that we donate all of our subscriptions, all of our bits to. Last quarter, all of our subscriptions and shares are going to Black Girls Code. We're going to make that donation here very, very soon as the payout comes in from Twitch. And Veterans Who Code is who we're going to support this quarter. April, May, June, all subscriptions, all cheers go to veterans who are learning to program for the web. That's great. We got to support those folks come back from the military.
A lot of those people are looking for career changes. So they're coming out looking for new skills so they can re-enter the workforce as a civilian. So it's really a great thing to support.
Oh yeah, it's tremendous to be able to make that career change. And actually, we've got a couple folks that are going to join us a little bit later today here on today's stream who have gone through a bit of a career change. We're going to learn a little bit about what it was like to go from something else to software development. Rhyolite is a veteran who codes. Wow, terrific, Rhyolite. I love hearing that. And thanks for being a part of our community. Michael Jolly with the link. Desert Griffin says Blazor is cutting edge right now. Want to be production won't? Is that supposed to be won't be production ready until WASM is available and used in browsers? Well, WASM, that's WebAssembly. It is available, isn't it?
WebAssembly is available in browsers. It's still kind of in its early state, but it's being worked on pretty hard by the major browser companies. Firefox was the leading champ for a little while. I think Chrome's finally caught up, and since Edge has moved to a Chromium base, then there's no real performance difference there now.
Yeah.
So that part is there. The experimental tag is still on Blazor.
Okay.
We don't know when that's going to be lifted, but I would say to watch the upcoming events that are happening lately. Build's going to be probably some big news. But
I can't imagine Microsoft wouldn't have news at Build.
There'll be some news, I'm sure, around it. Can't say exactly what it might be.
If you're a .NET developer, you should be seeing amazing things coming out of Build.
You should,
as one would expect.
Yes, I hope you expect.
The WebAssembly thing, like Ed said, it is new. I think everyone's playing.
And Blazor is just one framework.
Yeah, right. So that's what I was trying to get to. So WebAssembly really levels the playing field for other higher level languages to be able to execute things on the browser just like JavaScript does.
Yes.
Right. So what we are basing all of this on is Mono. So you can take your .NET and C# code, run it through the compiler, get it to an IL, and then run it through LLVM, and then onto WebAssembly.
Okay.
So that's what everything is based on, and that thing is maturing. It is still IL interpretation for the most part now, but they're working really hard on ahead of time compilation.
Yeah, right. That's not what we do normally with .NET, right? We end up generating that bytecode for the just-in-time compilation that Windows and Linux and Mac do so
exactly. So the other part of it is when you run .NET code natively in the browser, you're shipping some DLLs.
Okay.
So there's ongoing work, as Ed will tell you, on tree shaking. So you're shipping the minimum bits of .NET that you need to run your apps.
Good old IL linker.
Yeah, good old IL.
So I won't have to ship system XML even though I'm not using XML in the browser.
Right, and even the DLLs.
You might be using a portion of it.
Exactly.
You don't have to ship the entire.
Even if you're using a DLL, you don't ship the whole thing.
Okay.
So tree shaking. And what WebAssembly also brings to the table is the scope of, like you said, Blazor is only one way of coming to it from an ASP.NET background. If you do Razor, it's almost like the React component model. But what this also opens up is, I did Silverlight back in the days.
Hold on. Wait. Back up. Hang on. You are not going to... Stop everything.
Do you have the Frozen Let It Go song?
No, I don't. But we're going to back up a second. You said Silverlight.
Yes. So here's the thing.
Okay.
Those of us who... Okay, so Steve Jobs wrote a scathing letter, as we all know, where he said Flash has some security vulnerabilities.
Steve Jobs scathing never. Go on.
But he kind of killed off the plugins model.
Yes, he did.
And along with it, maybe died Silverlight. But those of us who did Silverlight really enjoyed the dev experience. It was beautiful. The tools and XAML and C#, it was great. Now, XAML isn't one language for everything. The XAML has slightly different dialects.
Sure.
So we are starting to see some XAML show back up on the web. Through multiple different ways.
Okay.
So you can actually have a XAML Informs backend supporting apps on the web. So you are coming back slowly to the dev experience that you enjoyed with Silverlight, but done without any plugins.
Okay.
Right,
now,
so,
is that what I see from those folks like the Uno framework?
Yes.
Okay.
And as well as Frank Kruger has a thing called UI.
Okay.
So
now, is it UI or is it we?
It's we. I think it calls it we, but it's UI.
Oh, man. Don't give me that.
I don't know. It depends on how he pronounces it.
Okay.
So, again, Uno does actually have a very nice WebAssembly interpretation.
Okay.
You can go to the playground, you can see XAML code that you can edit on the fly, and it runs in the browser. So there are multiple aspects of WebAssembly kind of maturing from a Mono's kind of execution and integration standpoint.
And Mono's mature. Mono's been around for a while, right? There's a number of games and things that run on Mono that you've probably played out there. And we're just repurposing it so it runs in the browser.
And we're talking Unity, Xamarin, Mono's
popular. Out there,
very stable.
Mono is actually as old as the .NET framework itself. Like Miguel and those guys, they started Mono. The port of .NET was started right when .NET first started, so it's very mature. The API canvas is huge. .NET Core has come a long way, but maybe eventually we'll see some sort of a unification. But Mono is here to stay. I think it's very
absolutely, Mono is here to stay. So Ed, let me take Stelzy's comment here and redirect to you. Stelzy says, I think if Microsoft suddenly would somehow drop Blazor, I think there would be a big mob of angry developers with literal pitchforks in front of Microsoft offices in Redmond protesting.
I think I agree. I think Daniel Roth will be running for cover.
Yeah.
And I think he knows that. And he said on the Visual Studio 2019 launch that they are not in the mode of will they drop it, but when will it be non-experimental?
Sure.
So it's not an if anymore, it's a when.
And the fact that they've taken the component model, the Razor component model, and they've put it into ASP.NET Core 3 with SignalR means you get some of that performance that you would see in Blazor, but it's not completely there.
So I'll tell you how you know that it's not going away.
Oh,
okay.
Hang on. Details. Do tell.
It is baked into ASP.NET Core 3.0 in not only the Blazor server-side framework, it is baked into MVC and Razor pages.
Ah, okay.
So right now you can take a Blazor component, say a Teller grid, Blazor component. You can put it in an MVC app and you can render it.
Oh my.
So you have backwards compatibility. And this makes a bridge that you can build.
It's not backwards compatibility. You have framework compatibility.
Yeah. If you
okay.
For lack of a better term.
And don't you also have like Visual Studio templates everywhere for Blazor?
There's 3 Visual Studio templates now, but those aren't exactly in the same ballpark as what I'm talking about. I think that's the things people are worried will go away. How I know it won't go away is you can actually build a Razor Pages app. You can put a Blazor component in there, and it will render. There's a wrapper that you put around it that's baked into that framework that allows it to render. Now, right now, remember I'm saying it will render.
Yeah.
It just does just that. It renders. So my great example, if you wanted to click on the pager, it's not going to do anything.
Okay.
They're working on the next version that will allow that interactivity. So what it's going to do is that page will, if it's server side, it will spin up a SignalR hub and a client and connect it. Just for that page, not for the whole app, but just for that page. If it's client side logic, then the hope is that it will just start running on WebAssembly.
There we go. All right. Yeah, that's not bad.
When we come to a conference like CodeStock here, and you talk to developers who are in the middle of maintaining and shipping apps for the enterprise, what Blazor, I think, brings to the table is the consistency of being able to do C# front and back.
Yes.
Because the reality is a lot of enterprises who have traditionally been .NET shops, they still do ASP.NET, Web API, which is very, very fast on top of .NET Core.
Certainly is.
But they have moved on to like a SPA on the front end.
Oh, yeah.
And now you can come back to C#. And maybe you don't need to drop JavaScript entirely. There's an inner app, which...
But the number of .NET developers who don't want to learn another language, don't want to learn another object model, they have an option now. They have an escape to go and build user interface. And
it's not just the language either, it's the ecosystem. So you're not tied to NPM and Webpack. You've got NuGet and NSBuild. So you don't.
Some people like NPM and JavaScript. They're welcome to that. It's about choice.
Use what you're most efficient at building. Yes. For me, that's NuGet and NSBuild.
Terrific.
So,
well, do we have any final words here before we take off and we bring in our next guest? Thank you so much, guys. We want to make sure folks know about check out the giveaway down below. Click that link, fill out the form, and you could win a ticket to build. Yeah. And is there stuff coming up from Progress that we need to know about?
The only thing I would say is don't reinvent the wheel as a developer. Again, look around with your options. I think what we try offering is the best-in-class UI with lots of support and a rich community and ecosystem that you're coming into. So take a look at what we are building. We are very busy. Telluride.com is where to start. And if you are a .NET developer, tune in to build. And if you want to come to build physically, fill out that form. So
And if you're watching the bleeding edge with Blazor and it's it's not production ready yet, don't go build Blazor apps in production. Do not go build Blazor apps in production yet.
Don't do that.
But what's nice is with the DevCraft licenses that we have with Telluride, you can start a brand new ASP.NET Core 2.2 application, build with all of the wonderful components that we have, and that license will eventually. We don't have licensing terms set up yet, but it's likely that will include Blazor at a future point.
Very cool. So, don't build those production apps with Blazor yet. Give it a try. Get the licenses to Telluride DevCraft. And if you do build for Blazor in production,
it's illegal in 9 countries.
It's illegal in 9 countries. You're going to have a real hard time.
It's on you.
It's on you.
But you can come to my
But it's all
stream
open source.
and you can ask questions about what you did wrong.
Yep, and Cool Tony just dropped a link to for folks to give you a follow. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you joining me.
Thanks for having us.
This was great. And check out Progress and click the link, fill out the form. You could win a ticket. All right,
guys.
Thanks so much, guys. And we're going to bring in our next guest. Here we go. Can we slide out that other chair? All right, my next guest joining us this morning. This has been a long time coming. My gosh, I feel like we've just missed each other a bunch of different places. This is Heather Downing. Heather, it's so nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Why don't you give folks a quick intro, who you are? We're here live from CodeStock. If you haven't heard, go ahead.
What I do? Wow. Okay, well, I'm a developer. I've been developing for about 8 or 9 years now. I work as a senior developer advocate for Okta now. Okay. That just started this year, so I'm really excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've always wanted to be an avocado, and here I am.
Okay, developer advocate avocado. When did this thing happen?
I actually don't know when it started. I'm not the originator. I understand that it was outside of the .NET world, though. I think it happened somewhere else, and there's actually like an entire website dedicated to this concept, and I think somebody slipped up by accident and said avocado. And I make the best guacamole on the planet, so if you want to challenge me,
do you?
Challenge accepted.
All right.
So I just now decided to run with it, and now everybody else does too. It's kind of fun.
Okay. So what does Okta do? What kinds of things do you promote from them as part of coming to events like CodeStock?
Well, actually, what's interesting about this is that Okta chooses their developer advocates to be from the communities that they represent.
Good.
So, like, for example, David DenUyl also is one of the...
David DenUyl, I think we know that guy.
Yeah, he's also one of my teammates. He's awesome, and I also work with, like, Lee Brandt and Matt Rabel and Aaron and Micah, and they're just awesome. But they represent...
People know me.
Yeah.
People know her.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
And so they each have brought a lot to the table already, and so I was brought in to identify with the enterprise .NET development community because I've done a lot of that.
Okay.
And so I got to spend time with them and discover that, I've built my own auth before, and it sucks. It's not fun.
Built your own authorization,
Correct.
authentication.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it does suck, and so Okta has an API product and an SDK that allows you to just kind of hand it off and let them do it completely. Which is nice. And you can still have control over your users, so it's not like you are using something like Facebook or Twitter. It's actually, you control the users completely, which is nice, but you don't have to build any of the back and forth. You can just do a configuration and drop it in your app. It's very nice to do.
As a developer, and you mentioned it's one of those things when I start thinking about authentication and authorization, right? The two sides. Authentication, here's who I am. Authorization, am I allowed to do that? Managing those that's scary, because if I do that wrong,
right.
Now I'm the next target breach.
Correct.
Right? I'm the next, think of how many credit card breaches are out there, and to be able to say, you know what, let's bring in a product, bring in a service like Okta. That's a huge load off of people's shoulders, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And for me, like, I came from a really big IoT kind of world, because I've always done .NET and I've always built the APIs, but I've done 2 or 3 years of voice applications now. I started out in mobile development as well. Okay. So I'm very familiar with what it means to do that kind of stuff versus the back end. And there's just so many open doors, especially in IoT. And so part of what I get to come in and do is write blog articles about how to integrate with Alexa as a .NET developer.
Hang on, you just triggered somebody's Amazon device out there. Alexa, cancel. Okay, I think we're good. Okay.
That's true.
Yeah, right.
That's true. And also, you're right. There's so much that changes also when it comes to security. Like, what is the correct methods to do that? It's an entire subset of development. So because you want what you have to be secure, on top of the fact that you're trying to deal with all of your business logic.
Yeah.
I mean, you can certainly build it if you'd like. I know several people who roll their own. Okta is a competitor to a couple of other frameworks out there as well, but they just make it really easy for enterprise to interact with. Like, if you've ever logged into Adobe, we built their whole login experience. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Creative Cloud, that goes through a little bit of Okta technology.
Correct. Okta actually handles the entire authentication and authorization.
Very cool. Yeah. I'm going to redirect here to the chat room. Landon BR in the chat room says, the S in IoT stands for security. You haven't heard that before.
I have. I always tend to work with cutting edge technologies because I'm super interested.
Okay.
That's my only big brand, if I have one, is that I'm super curious, right? I'm curious about everything because that means that if I latch onto a new technology, hardly anybody knows about it either. So they can be like, I get to kind of discover along with everybody else what's happening. And I discovered very quickly that it was easy to kind of do some hacks. Like, for example, I love drones and I have one.
Okay.
And do you know how easy it is to hack into Parrot's API?
Oh,
like,
no.
I can take over your drone like that. There's like no security protocol.
So you're using hack with their API to actually mean break into security.
Well,
break through the security.
I know that it's a word that's used all the time for lots of different things.
It's overloaded, yes.
Correct, but I don't know how else to say it. Like, what would you think is if somebody took over control of what you were flying?
That's hacking,
correct.
Absolutely. Versus, right, I'm just hacking on some code over here to assemble whatever.
Sure, and I understand that we probably need like 3 more terms, right, for some of this stuff.
But you're using that word.
It's hacking.
I don't think it means what you think it means.
It means many things.
I know. So, I mean, I didn't want to continue to invent new ways to handle things for every situation.
No.
So that was part of what really appealed to me about coming for kind of like the same thing that your last guest echoed. Don't reinvent the wheel.
No.
Let a couple of companies that really know what they're doing when it comes to security be the ones to help and create that library for you to use.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why part of the reason I went to Okta.
Okay, very cool. And you mentioned about the speech devices, right? Whether it's Amazon's Echo, I'm not going to say her name, Google Home, right? Or even Cortana here in Windows.
No Siri for you?
Do you see an iOS? I'm wearing a watch. I'm wearing the Apple Watch. No, Siri, does Siri have a good component model like those other?
No, but she will. And,
okay. She better.
The problem is that Apple right now is kind of going through a batten down the hatches and focus on just a couple of areas. They're doing the same thing with their models. They're cutting out their entry-level models and keeping everything pretty much at like $1,000 and above going forward. So they are focusing on their niche market.
Oh, very niche.
But because there's pressure coming from the other companies, Apple's not going to be able to ignore it, and they're going to have to create a component that you can drop in. Now, you can do like iOS, work with Siri directly on the phone, but there is nothing like over an API that you can do right now.
Right, that I see that as a real game changer for Amazon's device, being able to find the skills in the app and just light it up, with a little bit of sign in, and now your Echo device knows how to do this as well. It knows how to turn on the lights in my house.
Oh yeah.
It knows how to set the thermostat, all kinds of things like that. And I had this problem. Folks on the chat know this has happened to me. Internet went out. We lost our internet connection. There was a outage in my neighborhood, and suddenly my kids were like, "How do we turn on the lights in the house?" They're asking Alexa, I said her name, to turn on the lights, and nothing's happening. I'm like, no, you actually have to use the switches now.
Right.
We get so used to these things, but you're talking about and at conferences like this and building new things. What are some of the cool things you've seen folks do with those devices?
Oh man, well, devices. Okay.
I mean, I'm just a naive person who has it hooked up to my lights, and it reads me the news in the morning, tells me the weather. What else do you see folks do with these speech devices, speech activated devices?
Well, before I came to Okta, I actually worked in the marketing world. And I was kind of like their innovation engineer, so I would have to make things very quickly, but for the Super Bowl, because it doesn't move, so guess what? You've got 2 weeks. That's just kind of how it works.
Yes.
So I
tight deadline, got to make that delivery.
I've done a lot of proof of concepts, and then I've worked on actual real shipped voice apps on both platforms. And I can tell you that TensorFlow is more powerful than Lex, which powers Alexa. And you can also use your voice apps on phones, on the Android phones and Google Home, right? So there's that, and they work the same way. They both go through APIs. The way that you configure it's a little differently. But as a .NET developer, I actually can build an API that can be shared by both that has separate endpoints, which is powerful to me. So as an enterprise developer, that means that I don't have to build a whole new project. I can just extend my existing API with all my existing business logic and hook into both of these. So while they're busy competing, we're not going to be competing. We're going to support both.
Okay.
And then we'll support Siri when she comes online as well that way, so that you can do that. I can tell you that some of the things we built right now is really exciting because now that all the HIPAA stuff has gone through, there's some real helpful healthcare stuff that's happening in there too.
Let's make sure folks know HIPAA, right? That's the Health Information Privacy and Protection Act here in the States, to make sure that your medical information isn't shared in ways that you don't approve of.
Correct. It's big around your healthcare security, right?
Yes.
So you have to be compliant. That means you have to deal with a whole lot of the government coming in and making sure that you're doing things correctly so that you're not mishandling the data. So now you can do things like, for example, I have a Fitbit, right?
Okay.
This is a really easy way for me to kind of put this in perspective. But if I have a Fitbit, maybe I can just over time ask Alexa, what have I been trending for XYZ? And then Fitbit's voice skill will actually just respond to me instead of me having to look it up. If I'm bedridden and I don't have a screen in front of me, or I don't have like a phone in front of me, I can just ask those questions. And now major healthcare organizations have all gone on there. Cigna's on there, Blue Cross Blue Shield's on there. And so now you can just ask things about your situation. I've done things for banks. So remember, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, they said that nobody will ever build a mobile app for a bank because it's not secure. They want to physically go in person, see them. But we trade a little bit of that for the convenience of being able to look things up. So I was told people are never going to want to ask, Google, what is my balance in my checking account?
Yes.
But guess what? They absolutely do.
Because what's the total value of my stock account? Oh my gosh, yes.
And so because it actually takes less time for human brain to process anything audible than it is to read something. And so, not to mention, there is no menu. You can just literally ask whatever you want instead of, hold on, let me go to this poorly designed website or poorly designed mobile app, to trying to get down to the frequently asked questions. Just ask your question.
So Heather, you've got me thinking. I just went through a process a couple days ago. I was ordering some medical equipment, and I went through one of those annoying phone menus.
Yes.
I would love to, do you see this happening? Do you forecast this happening? That those phone menus, those IVR system, right? What's IVR? It's interactive voice response.
Yes, correct.
Taking on more of that technology that we've already seen from Alexa and Google Home.
Yes.
So we can just ask and say, I need help with this.
So right now, I'm not I don't represent them or anything.
No, certainly not. But that feels like a better
Delta
solution.
does that right now. So right now, they replaced their IVR system with something very similar. I believe it's powered by TensorFlow. And it does the same thing. I'm like, hey, this blah, blah, blah got rescheduled. And it actually extracted information I gave. What if I gave no information? What if I said, my flight got canceled? Then it would guide me. So look at my decision tree now as a developer. I get something coming in that I'd expect, let's say that there are 3 slots for information and I get 1. Then I can analyze it and go, I got 1 answer. I need the other 2. So instead of saying, sorry, you didn't give me the right information, and holding that up, I can say, great, I got that you have this happening, so tell me what's the flight number and whatever you have. But if I already provided that for you, don't treat me like a child. Now I'm a more super user and just go straight into what you can do with it.
But you've actually given them some information, because if you call Delta, you're calling on your mobile phone. You probably have notifications wired up.
Correct.
So they could even do a caller ID lookup. They
already know me. Yes.
They already know who you are.
They already know.
So they know what flight that they might have just notified you for and can backtrack that. That's pretty smart.
It is pretty smart, and it's actually not that complicated when you think about it as a dev. It's just, unfortunately, IVR came back during the days where you had to have a script that you guided people through, and you do to a certain extent, but really you just have to look at what do you already know about your user, and can you answer the question with the amount of data provided? And if you can, then skip to it. And people love that because then they don't have to go through the 20 questions game to get what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
That is when I started seeing more things of voice take off. And then once, Mark from Shark Tank was like, this is where it's at. This is where people should be investing their time. I'm like, see, I knew it wasn't a waste of my time 2 years ago to get into this. So yay. But now the question is security, right? And that's part of the reason that I went to the company I went to.
Yes. All that stuff has to be secure, flowing through from the voice apps. And I also worry about somebody, a guest in my house, just asking my Echo Dot, oh, hey, what's the balance on Jeff's bank account?
So I'm going to do a blog post that's going to come out next week if you're interested about it. And we're going to talk about two-factor auth, what that means without another device being the factor. Oh. What if the second factor is a rotating word that you have to say in order to qualify you to come log in, right?
Okay.
So there are different kinds of factors that you can deal with that. And that works really well for things like your bank account or things that are sensitive that you want to change all the time. What happens if your daughter accidentally listens to you saying something? We can set it up to where it can rotate. There's lots of ways that you can handle this that don't necessarily have to always be your phone. Because let me tell you, if I'm cooking, I don't have my phone with me. I'm asking a question. I want to be able to do it all audibly. So yes, it is possible to do two-factor authentication completely audibly. And that's
very cool. Yeah. Okay, we'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking here at the chat. Folks talking about IVR. Yeah. Lewis Hendricks says it's Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Thank you for the correction, Lewis. I appreciate you helping out there. Always great to see folks in the chat room with the corrections. I thought there were 2 P's and 2 A's in there, and there was something about privacy. Yeah, Privacy, Portability, and Accountability Act. You can find it on Wikipedia.
That's what Google's for.
That's what Google and the Bing is for.
Yes.
Yeah, HIPPA. Yeah, there are 2 P's.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Lannon says, can Alexa execute the bash script I demoed at a conference? That's one of my demos.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can actually, without even writing a backend, you can use if this then that to do that for you.
Oh yeah.
Or you can set up Jenkins to do that for you.
Okay.
There's all sorts of things you can.
So Jenkins is continuous integration that software folks use to build our applications, build the source code.
It also can be used for triggers.
Okay, we can use it to trigger all kinds of things.
You can do that with Azure DevOps. You can do. There's lots of things you can do that is out there to trigger it. Basically, this is what it is. Sounds like it's all magic in a box, and in a way, maybe you can kind of think about it that way. But all it is it's just an API endpoint looking for some JSON.
So it's a web API endpoint. It's some place that you can get to on the web, and it's looking for that JavaScript notation.
Well, it's looking for JSON.
Sure.
Yes, and so
I want to make sure some of our beginner developers understand some of those.
So that's all it's really looking for. You can certainly use some SDKs that are out there, but honestly, you can treat it just like any other API call that you do.
Okay.
So just understand that you cannot cause her to start talking. The user has to start the conversation, and you are reacting. You're responding to it. Okay. So that means that you will always be tapped on the shoulder by Amazon and saying, "Hey, this user has a question, and this is the specific question that they had." So there's actually an object mapping that they do for you that you set up in their portal. It's pretty easy. You're like, hey, I just want you to hit my endpoint with this keyword or this and that. I will go ahead and handle that within my own API.
Okay.
And I will do my mapping from there.
Oh, very
so
cool.
It's really nice. It's like you didn't have to write any of the mapping from any of the Audible stuff at all. They completely abstract that for you, and they do all of that. That's part of the benefit of using the systems.
Very cool. DNet78 says he's a bit apprehensive about interactive voice devices as they sometimes capture conversations not meant for it and can end up in the random samples that the devices take for quality improvement. That was a story that hit the press this week.
It was a story that hit the press. Hilariously, I actually have taken apart those devices and I know how they work. And I do have friends at both Google and Amazon that work in these departments, and I can tell you they're pretty dumb devices. They really are. I mean, without an internet connection, you have nothing.
Okay, sure.
It has a very, very small memory, if anything.
Memory on the device.
On the device is very small, and there is a system in which things are triggered, okay? So it's looking for its name. So if you have a daughter that may have a similar name, I mean, I changed mine to computer because I thought it was fun and very Star Trek-y,
sure.
You know, to do. But it's always listening for that. When it comes to the snippets of conversations, at some point in time, it's looking to correct them. For example, like I know that like a well-known music artist has a similar name as well, and so these engineers are like, oh, we have to tweak like the way that like these pieces of audio come in so that it's not accidentally lighting up. That is like the sole purpose of what they're trying to do. There's never listening for an extended period of time. It's very short. I think it's like maybe 2-3 seconds. And so it's not really like, it doesn't have the buffer for that. And if you don't believe me, you can sniff on your own network, and you can see when it goes out. And so I actually set up a logger to log every time it went out.
Okay, so you can see exactly what it's sending.
Correct. And so you can do this yourself. And so again, I don't work for either one of these companies, but I can tell you I don't feel any worse about it than I do about my phone. You know, with my phone, listening to things, like it's waiting for a trigger word. And in order to do that, it takes samples every so often of like, what are you saying? But it doesn't keep them. Like it doesn't keep them there. So I understand that you're like, oh, well, maybe when it gets sent up to Google, then they listen to it. I can tell you that there's so many people on these. And while they have scaled up their operations, there's no way they're listening to you 24 hours a day. I'm just so sorry. Like, that's not the way that it's going. They listen to very small sample sizes, and it's really hard. It's mostly just to tweak what the trigger words are, and it's not nearly what you're thinking.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, wrapping up, our next guest is here. Where can people go to learn more about Okta?
Well, go to developer.okta.com.
Okay.
If you go /blog, you can see some of the stuff that me and my team have done, and a lot of really new cool things. Our Okta Toolkit just launched. So those are like different sample use cases of how to do different kinds of things in every language. So that's exciting. And then if you're interested in following me, I'm Coraline on Twitter. So it's QUORRALYNE.
Okay.
And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very cool. Thanks so much for joining me, Heather. This is great. And hope you have a good rest of the conference here in Knoxville. Very cool. So that was Heather Downing. And I've got my next guest coming on here. This is Josh Carroll. Hey, Josh, come on over.
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you. Thanks for joining me here. So, Josh, why don't you give folks a quick intro if they don't know who you are?
Yeah, so my name's Josh Carroll, and I'm a local developer here in Knoxville, where CodeStock is being hosted at. And I've been doing software development for a really long time, done a lot on the Microsoft stack, got really heavy into doing a lot of web development.
Okay.
Right now I'm doing independent consulting, but before that I was part owner of a consulting company, and before that I was actually one of the principals at Wintellect. So,
yes, Wintellect. We know that company. There's a number of videos of mine over on Wintellect in their library. Very cool stuff. So you do a lot with the local groups here, JavaScript folks in town. So when you talk to those folks, are they primarily Node developers, or are they also using JavaScript with PHP, with other back-end technologies?
Yeah, see, that's the interesting thing about JavaScript. And so I'm also organizer of the Knox.js user group, and it's a very diverse, kind of eclectic group when it comes to technology. You've got some people who are doing only JavaScript, both server-side and front-end, like Node, that kind of thing. You've got some people who are coming from PHP backgrounds, or they're coming from .NET backgrounds. Or you've got some people who are just straight front-end developers who've never even done anything with the back-end. And that varies, all the way from people just doing, jQuery all the way up to, Ember, Angular, React.
Okay. You dropped jQuery in there. Is jQuery still a thing?
Last time I checked, jQuery was still loaded in something like 60% of all websites on the web. So jQuery is still a thing. So
chat room, don't tell me that I shouldn't be using jQuery when we're writing some code here, okay? I'm watching you out there. Right? Josh tells us it's still a thing. We're good to still using it, okay? But those other frameworks, right, whether it's Vue or Angular or React, it feels like there's a new flavor of the year, right? It feels like 2019 is the year of Vue, right? Last year it was Angular 6, right, or React, right? And I feel like Angular keeps coming back in here because it's got Google's support, and I think React is going to end up hanging in there because of Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
But is this something that you and your user group handles well? How do you make that bounce between the different frameworks?
Yeah, JavaScript fatigue, right? Several years ago,
I think it's just framework fatigue, and it's not specific to JavaScript.
Right.
All of the various programming languages run into this.
Right. Years ago when I first got started into what I would call modern web development, and this was way back in 2010, 2011, so it's kind of early into single page applications. Got started with Knockout.
Love
Steve
Knockout.
Sanderson and Knockout still have kind of a special place in my heart.
And it influenced a lot of different frameworks.
Right. It was very, I think, ahead of its time. And but through that and going into it, there was at one point in time, I had come from a traditional sort of ASP.NET, server-side rendered, deliver, and then transitioned into more of everything was API first, and the client was really just a bunch of JavaScript and maybe HTML views. And I remember at one point I sat down with some people who hadn't gotten into the modern web development, and I started explaining to them the stack and what all went into it. And I remember at about 30 minutes into me explaining stuff, I kind of almost just stopped and said, oh my goodness, it's gotten so complicated compared to what it used to be. It used to be you just rendered things and sent it down, and then now we have all these build steps and Webpack and minification and all these different things, and how do you handle that? And things have gotten better, but in a lot of ways I feel like front-end web development is what C development was in the 1980s when you actually had to know what a linker was.
Okay.
Nobody deals with linkers anymore, right? They still exist, but
they've become, I think linkers, right? They've become a technology that we try and hide under the covers.
Exactly.
Make it easier for folks to get in and focus on their business logic, their business rules. And you're right. I think we've gone to the far extreme with front-end web development where it is very complex. You try to explain all these things to a beginner, and we have a number of beginners that are watching and some intermediate folks and, of course, advanced folks. But when you try and explain to those beginners all these different things you need just to build a web page, it becomes overwhelming.
It's completely overwhelming. I mean, you get into it and you start talking about, CSS, and it's not just CSS anymore. Now you got people doing CSS and JS, and there's less, and Sass, and Post CSS, and you start talking about the build tools and the chaining and putting all of that together. It gets very overwhelming very quickly.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think you've seen the rise of things like, Create React App, the Angular CLI, those that are kind of the batteries included, go here, type a few commands, and you get started.
And when you do that, you feel
You can do it!
And you accomplish something and you're able to move on. And you've got that first win, right? There's that great feedback when you get that initial page load with a feature from one of those tools.
Right. I think you start to see some of the problems creep in is when you get to a point to where then you need to break out of that mold and you need to do something custom. And then you're presented with go configure something in Webpack. And that's when you go down the rabbit hole and things get really complicated really quick.
Webpack is one of those technologies that I started working with, and I'm in, and I'm trying to figure out how to work with it. And I was just burned by Gulp, and before that, Grunt. And do I really want to learn this, or is there going to be another flavor of the week that comes along shortly after that?
Right.
3 months, 6 months down the road, and it feels like Webpack has actually had some staying power here.
It won. I mean, I did Grunt and Gulp, and then I got into doing System.js for doing bundling, minification, and loading in front end resources. I picked the wrong horse. Webpack won.
Yeah.
So the only thing I think really, Vue feels like it's definitely kind of been an up and coming one, but at this point in time, you really have 4 kind of main players. You've got React, which is the dominant player in the front end right now.
Okay.
You've got Angular. Angular has definitely made a lot of progress since their first initial release of Angular 2, and everybody kind of got over the fact that even though it says Angular in the name, it's a totally different framework than Angular 1. Right, it's not AngularJS.
Yes.
And then, Vue is a really great library. It's seems very popular in the PHP crowd.
Okay.
And I'm not sure for what particular reasons, but it just seems really popular in the PHP crowd. But I think at this point, and then you have Ember.js, of course,
Sure. Ember's been around for a while.
But been around for a while. But I think honestly, outside of those and some of the, more esoteric, frameworks that are out there and some of the smaller niche ones, those are really kind of your dominant players. And it's been that way for a long time at this point.
So you are seeing React as the winner right now.
Yeah, I found a lot more. So I was really heavily involved with Angular 1. I knew Angular 1, frontwards and backwards, did a lot of consulting with that. And then once Angular 2 kind of dropped, and, I feel like, the people behind Angular are amazing. I love Angular 2 plus. It's Angular 7, working on Angular 8 now.
Moving fast.
Right, moving fast. I love the framework. I think it's really well done. At the same time, there was that period between Angular 1 and Angular 2. And I have actually, in the wild, found a lot more shops that are going from Angular.js to React or Vue.
Really?
Rather than looking at update.
Rather than doing the update.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, do you see enterprises going after one framework or another? Is there a preference between different organizations, right? If a big enterprise, they might say, I want the support of Facebook or Google, right, and prefer React or Angular appropriately.
Yeah, it seems to be split a little bit. I find a lot more Java and C# shops that seem to embrace Angular and more enterprisey.
Okay.
Angular's batteries included, right? It's got everything. It's got the router and all of the stuff that you need. React is, less opinionated, I guess. And so React is just a Vue rendering library, but, let's be honest, Create React App is a framework,
Yeah, it is.
at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to be that the more Node, PHP, kind of the open source crowd tends to fall onto the React side.
Okay.
And a little bit more on the enterprise side, Java, C# tend to fall into doing Angular.
Okay.
Don't know, again, why that is particularly, personalities, that kind of thing. But
are they looking for different support models? That's the thing that I first look at when I think about, when I engage with a framework, right, or a tool set. What's the support? What's the upgrade system? Who are the folks behind this that are going to grow it? And yeah, it makes sense that folks who are already engaged in embracing open source want the more open source grown frameworks.
Right.
That's interesting.
Right. Which, Google is obviously, Angular is completely open source, but I think, it's weird, not as a dig on Microsoft or anything. Microsoft's doing amazing right now, but I feel like Google is the new Microsoft.
Okay.
and that people tend to view them with an eye of suspicion, and they kind of look at Google and they're like, I'm not sure I like Google as much, and so I think they're perceived as being a little more, big brothery. I'm not sure why Facebook is not perceived that way in React, but React and Facebook seem to get a pass, right? It's almost, people don't really associate React with Facebook as much, and I'm not sure why.
I don't know, and even after they went through that little licensing debacle of 6 months ago or so now,
right?
That was interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Okay, thank you, Facebook.
Yeah.
So what were you speaking about this weekend here at CodeStock?
Yeah, so given a number of talks, my talk is actually just a straight JavaScript talk.
Okay.
I have noticed in my dealings that even though ES 2015, ES6 is 4 years old at this point.
So make sure some of our beginner folks know, right? ES6, ES 2015, that's ECMAScript. That's a standard version of JavaScript. That's a version of the language we're referring to.
Right, correct.
Okay.
And every year, anything that's made it to a stage 4 proposal and the TC39, so for anybody who doesn't know, TC39 is the committee that decides what features get into the next version of JavaScript or ECMA script. And so ES 6, HarmonyScript, 2015, those are all the same thing. But in 2015, it came out, and there were all of these new features. And and since then, there's been lots of new features that have been added. But I find that a lot of people are still not taking advantage of some of the more advanced features or things within JavaScript that they could be taking advantage of that make their lives easier.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So,
so you were showing folks here how to take advantage of some of those
the new features,
more modern features.
The more modern features within, hey, JavaScript has kind of grown up a little bit. It's gotten some more features, and there are things that you can do and take advantage of that are really helpful in your day-to-day life. And, it's worth knowing what some of those things are, like destructuring and those kind of things. And I find a lot of people still don't use that. So.
Lannon BR in the chat room says, I think this is a pretty good comment. Vanilla.js is the most future-proof web framework. I think that's probably true.
Yeah. I mean, I say that, but I mean, at the same time, there's a really great blog post that was written many years ago that was called "You Can't Not Have a Framework," and the basic idea behind that was, even if you're doing Vanilla.js, you're going to end up implementing some kind of a framework. The problem is there's no documentation. And it's not been tested with millions of users and things like that. So the nice thing about, nothing is
to maintain it.
Right. And nothing is future-proof.
Certainly.
I've been through so many different frameworks at this point. I think you kind of just have to embrace the suck and decide that every couple of years you're going to have to relearn, what you did. But, concepts poured over from one framework to another. I think as long as you accept that as a software developer, you're okay.
Very cool. Where can folks learn a little bit more about you, find you on Twitter?
Yeah, so I'm at JW Carroll on Twitter. That's probably the best place to. That's 2 R's and 2 L's, but that's probably the best place to find out and follow me. I occasionally tweet things.
Occasionally.
and that's where people, I think, probably can find out the most and engage there. So
very cool. Thanks so much. It's been great having you here. Great seeing you, Josh. Take care. And we're going to get ready for our next guest. I don't know. Do we have a USB-C power cable? I'm running out of power on this laptop, and I think I left mine back at the hotel room. So, otherwise, I'm going to lose chat. And Robert Tables in the chat room says, "Good luck on your talk, Josh." And there's also a comment here about JavaScript is actually a trademark. Oh, that'll work. Thank you. And I'll get this back to you a little bit later.
No problem.
Thank you very much. We will plug in here. Excuse me for a second. Pardon my arms while I try and get a little bit of juice into my laptop. Am I getting it? There we go. Thank you. Yes. Josh saved the day. Got me some power. All right. My next guest is Kara. Come on over, Kara. Joining us. This is... how do you pronounce your last name, Kara?
Luton.
Luton.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
Great to have you here on the show. Now, Kara, why don't you introduce yourself for the folks here that are watching out in Twitch land?
Hi, I'm Kara. I'm a UX engineer at CrowdStrike.
Okay.
Yes, I've been actually only there for a month. I just got a new job. I'm working remotely in Nashville.
All right.
Yeah.
So you're from the other side of the state.
The other side, the middle side, yes.
So you just started there, and I understand that this is one of your first software development jobs.
Yes. So before this, I was in an agency.
Okay.
And I had a really weird path to tech. When I was 17, I was actually living in New York City and pursuing a career as a ballerina.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Completely different than what I do now.
Yes.
I'd been dancing since I was 3. It was something I really wanted to pursue at the time. So I moved out there on my own, and I was training full time with the Joffrey Ballet School.
Wow.
Yeah. Through that, I kind of realized that, ballet, as much as I love it, it's not the career for me.
Okay.
I'd be lucky if I lasted till I was 30. And just with injuries and everything, it just I wanted to put it on the back burner.
Okay.
So I moved back to Nashville and went to college at Belmont for public relations. Belmont's a big music school, and obviously being in Nashville, huge music industry. So
gosh, yes.
Yeah, so I got a job after graduating as a music publicist.
Okay.
It was really neat. I got to do red carpets, meet with celebrities.
Just
a casual
Nashville.
Yes. But it was really stressful too. Basically, my entire job relied on somebody opening my email and saying yes to an interview.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yes. Email responsiveness is my nightmare.
Yes. And these journalists are getting thousands of emails a day, and it's really hard to stand out.
Yes, right? Because you're just a line in somebody's email box.
Yes, exactly. So I didn't like that that's how my boss was being like, hey, this is how Kara's doing a good job. This is how we're justifying it. So I started looking at other areas that I wanted to move into, and I discovered coding. I started teaching myself HTML and CSS on Code Academy. And then, so when I was dancing, I did online school, and I knew I needed kind of like that school environment to help grow better. And
everybody learns differently.
Yes, exactly. So I attended the Iron Yards front engineering course. It was 3 months long. Unfortunately, the Iron Yards no longer around, but they were a great program, and I'm really thankful for them. So after graduating, got a job at my agency, and now I'm at CrowdStrike.
That is terrific. So you spent the time and you learning HTML, CSS, front end web development. You've reinvented your career.
Yes.
And you're a few months in at this point. What do you think? What are some of the first impressions building applications and getting in there, getting your hands dirty in some of these tools?
Yeah, so I've actually been doing it for around 2 years now. But it's still new to me. It's still, especially going from, I was at an agency before, doing mostly marketing sites, and now I'm at building a product. So it's kind of a whole new world for me. It's almost
going like, from brochureware almost to something interactive.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So it's been good though. I mean, the thing that drew me to coding is that you're always going to be learning. There's so much stuff coming out all the time. It's actually really amazing to be able to be like, okay, I learned this. How do I improve? I want to learn the next thing. And sometimes that can be overwhelming too. But just knowing what you want to focus in on really helps.
Very cool. I'm going to reflect over here to the chat room. There's a couple of comments here that I want to make sure we highlight. Lewis Hendricks says, ballet is brutal. My wife takes adult ballet. I think her teacher is bionic below the waist now. New hips, new knees. Oh my gosh.
Yes. I will say my knees and my hips are messed up. Ballet, you don't realize how much of a toll it can take on your body. Ballerinas are truly some of the most amazing athletes that I've ever seen in my life.
The muscle definition on some of those folks is tremendous.
I used to be so in shape looking back at my pictures, and I did not think I was in shape then.
We're not going to talk about how in shape I am. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Electric Havoc says, congratulations for self-taught coding for the win. Yes, big congratulations to you. Rhyolite asks, are there any lessons that you learned from the ballet world that you apply to software?
Oh my gosh, so many. So ballet, it teaches you a lot of life lessons that not only you can use in software development, but you can use really in all aspects of your life. It teaches you how to pay attention to the little details, which is something you really need when you're doing what I do. It's times when I'm like, when you're doing a tanju, which is basically you're just stretching your leg out. You're not just stretching your leg out. You're pushing your leg into the ground and articulating your leg and your foot to get what you want. So it's really helped me develop like that attention to little details. It's also really taught me that you need to practice, and you won't be perfect.
There you go.
At something.
DNet78 says practice, practice, practice. Yes.
You won't be perfect at something right away. Ballerinas are really great at making the most difficult move look super easy, but it's because they practice all the time. So that's really something whenever I'm feeling a little down about not knowing how to do something, it's just a reminder to myself that I had to work on ballet too, so I have to work on this as well.
Oh, yeah. Robert Tables asks, are you still involved in the ballet world in any way? Are there organizations, mentoring that you might do?
So I'm not as involved as I wish I was. I don't take classes anymore. Just for me, I took a class last year, and it was a little sad for me taking a class because I remember being able to do all of these things. And my body just physically can't do it anymore. So I kind of steer away from classes. I want to get involved with other styles of dance that I wasn't as big into, like maybe like a tap or a jazz class, to still have that aspect in my life.
Broaden your horizons.
Yes. Yeah. But I still go to ballets all the time. I'm actually going to New York in July to see American Ballet Theater do Sleeping Beauty.
Oh, very nice.
It's my favorite ballet. I'm so excited to see it.
Oh my gosh. And Rhyolite cheers in. Thank you for that cheer. Great answer about ballet and software lessons. Yes, absolutely. And we'll, of course, with all the cheers and subscriptions we do here on the channel, we're going to make donations to veterans who code this quarter.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
My family's a military family. So.
Oh, I love being able to support different groups. Each quarter, we're supporting different organizations that teach and encourage folks to learn how to write code. Last quarter, we had a collection for Black Girls Code. We're going to make a big donation when the final payout comes here. And this quarter, through the end of June, is Veterans Who Code.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Once again, a group teaching web development, front-end skills. So let me dig in on some of the front end stuff that you're doing. And when we were talking to Josh before you, he was mentioning that for beginners, for new folks who are coming into the industry, he feels like front end development has gone from being something very simple, right? Especially if you're building those brochureware websites. Just browse around. Here's some details about our organization. When you get into interactive stuff, it's so complicated. We've now layered in not just JavaScript and CSS for styling and interactivity, but all these other tools and frameworks. Is that a challenge that you've seen as somebody newer, and you've been able to cross in a good way? And what's helped you along the way?
I think definitely coming into front-end development, it can be overwhelming now. Because like you said, it used to be really simple, and now it's really not. There's a lot of things. There's a ton of frameworks. Everybody's arguing about what framework to use. The whole ordeal. But I really think if you start with the basics, don't even touch frameworks if you're just starting out. Learn vanilla JavaScript and make that your basis. Learn pure CSS.
Yes.
Don't use, like, as amazing as stuff like Bootstrap and everything else can be, focus on learning it and setting those fundamentals, and I think you'll be set for the rest of your path.
Okay.
I'm just now getting to the point where I've used Vue and I've also used Ember. I'm diving back into Ember at my current job.
Okay.
And so I'm having to relearn Ember, and I'm just getting to the point where I feel like I've built my fundamentals enough that now I'm seeing similarities between Vue and Ember that I wasn't seeing before.
Yeah.
I learned them at my boot camp, and I was sitting there the other day and I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is how I would do this if I was doing it in Vue, and now I'm doing it in Ember, and it's just slightly different. So having those fundamentals really allows you to, like, pass along your knowledge.
While the software isn't compatible, the concept is compatible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I like that comparison there. That's pretty interesting to see. Electric Havoc says he was a tap dancer and a square dancer a lifetime ago. More power to you, Electric Havoc.
Tap dancing's amazing. I was never very good at it, and I wish I was.
Mrs. Fritz will tell you I am not a dancer. I've tried square dancing, and it was a disaster. Okay, I'm just going to leave it there. As you're, let me ask, here at CodeStock, what are you speaking on at the event?
So yesterday I was asked to be part of a panel about how to be a speaker like you.
Okay.
This is actually my first conference I've ever spoken at.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah,
Welcome to the speaker circuit.
Thank you so much.
Well, I've got about a half dozen other conferences we'll have you speak at here by the time we're done talking.
So I've given talks at local meetups, but this is my first conference. And Jared was nice enough to reach out and ask if I'd want to participate as a first-time panelist.
Okay.
Just to give that point of view. And then I actually just gave my introduction to CSS Grid talk right before this.
Very cool. Now, when you say CSS Grid, we're talking about like Flex Grid? Is that what you're referring to?
So CSS Grid is a new thing introduced to CSS. So it's kind of, instead of using floats or flexbox, which you can use CSS Grid with flexbox, it's a new layout system that is really revolutionizing how we're doing layouts.
All right. I've struggled for years with the 3-column layout. Like, you've seen my blog out there, chat room, jeffreyfritz.com. I have struggled with the 3-column layout, and it looks awful, terrible. And I'm going to pause for a second. Triopticon, thanks so much for the subscription. We'll make a donation to Veterans Who Code. Thank you very much for that. But I struggle with this. You're telling me that if I learn a little bit about CSS Grid, I'll be able to do the 3-column layout a little bit better instead of futzing with all the different classes and Bootstrap to try and make it work out.
Not even a little bit better. 2 lines of CSS. And you got 3 lines or 3 columns. Super easy.
Right. Now I got to go do some learning here. I gotta go figure this out. That's not the menu I want. Oh no, that's not where we are. My bad. I hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. So 2 lines of CSS. That feels like it feels oversimplified. I'm speechless. Listen to me. So 2 lines of CSS, and that'll target divs or something, and I can use that, or do we have different elements that I want to use instead?
So you can use divs. The one big thing I kind of try to put out there with CSS Grid is that you don't want to nest all of your grids. You want to use those semantic elements. So like your nav, content, main,
article, yes.
So you can use that instead of a div, which is really nice. Because like Flexbox, you're not having to set like a div around each group. CSS Grid makes it really easy. So on that container, you're going to set display grid. And then all you're going to do is say grid template columns, and you just have to define each column what width you want them at. So it makes it really easy. You can even use, if you want all your columns the same width, you can use the repeat function. So you say repeat, parenthesis, you want 3 columns, each at 200 pixels. Makes it super easy.
Oh my gosh.
And you have a grid. It's amazing.
Okay, and Electric Havoc is agreeing with you, saying CSS Grid is the best thing since Borders. Wow. There it is. Wow. There's the wow. Okay, so and about nesting grids, that takes me back to when I was writing websites in the .com era. We did nested tables, and we had table within a table within a table. And eventually we learned you can only go 32 tables deep before the browser breaks. Ask me how I know that. And being able to change and go to the HTML5 with the semantic markup, that does sound and feel much better than trying to, like I said, deal with tables, trying to figure out the floats and the clear and all that markup. All right. Now you've inspired me, Kara. I got to go and spend some time on CSS Grid here, and I know my chat room is going to hold me to that when I start writing code next time. I'm going to reflect here, pass over to Jameson, who asked the question, how's browser support for CSS grids? That's the only thing that they're concerned about. Or do we see good support? Not just in the big browsers on the desktop, but also on mobile?
Yeah, so it's supported across all major browsers, also on their mobile support as well.
Okay.
The biggest question I get with Grid is with Internet Explorer, because that's something that unfortunately we still have to support.
Yes.
But with Internet Explorer, so some properties like grid template areas and then our grid gap, which is essentially like our margins, those aren't supported. But you can actually use auto prefixer, and it makes it super easy to be able to use Grid on IE.
Okay. So you get, and that'll give you a little bit of a shim so that you can use those things appropriately. Yeah, I used to code exclusively for IE.
And then?
It was, we need to make sure it works for Chrome.
And then?
We need to make sure it works for iOS Safari.
And then?
Chrome on the Android.
And then?
I don't think there's any others. It's just those, right? So that becomes a challenge. And let me ask you, a comment that I hear a lot, coming from Microsoft where I work, folks are concerned about the impact of Microsoft Edge, the Edge browser that ships with Windows 10, now adopting the Google Chrome rendering engine. As a front-end developer, is that something that you have a concern about? Are you happy to hear that? What's your opinion of Edge now becoming more like Chrome?
Chrome is what I use most of the time.
Okay.
When I'm working with Grid, I actually defer to Firefox because their dev tools for Grid are absolutely amazing.
Oh, I did it again. I hit the wrong button. I'm sorry. That was me. So I wanted to, for Firefox, sorry, wrong button. You hear good things about the new Edge, says Pac-Man Jr., but you defer to Firefox because that's kind of in the middle?
So Firefox's dev tools for Grid are amazing, and I really hope Chrome adopts them in the future. So basically, when you go to your dev tools, you can click on layout, and there'll be a little checkbox next to anything that you have set as a grid container. You can turn that on, and you can actually see your trackline numbers. You can see your implicit and explicit grid. You can also see your area names. It's just I'm a visual person.
Sure.
So it's a really visual way to see what's happening with Grid. So whenever I am working with Grid, I usually defer to that just because I know I'm going to need those dev tools.
Sure.
So I automatically go there and turn them on.
So there's something to be said about how web development technologies have gone from being extremely visual back in the day with front page to being now all very text focused, right? You got to read these tags, you got to read and know how to interpret the CSS on it, and then that trial and error back and forth with the browser. I love hearing that there's a good layout tool that we can use to be able to visualize these things. Like I said, I struggle with it, and it's a pain in the neck to have browser side by side with my code, change, save, refresh, change, save, refresh. Oh my gosh, the trial and error is a nightmare. So are there ways then from Firefox to update my code and push it back into my page? Or is it strictly tinker with it and then go reflect those changes back on my code?
Yeah, it's kind of like what your normal process would be. So when you're editing things in the dev tools, you do have to go back and reflect that in your code. But I mainly use the dev tools just for that visual aspect, to see my track numbers. Because sometimes it is, you're like, hey, I want to start this item at track 1 and end it at track 3, but I'm not sure how wide that's going to be. So it's really just a nice visual way to lay out everything, especially with grid template areas. So basically what are those you're doing is you define different areas on your page. You can define like a sidebar, your content, your footer. And then in your media queries, all you have to do is reorganize those and it's automatically responsive.
Oh, nice. Okay. You've convinced me. I need to spend some time with CSS Grid here. Very cool. Lewis Hendricks is calling back, going way back here. Right. Throwback to hot dog HTML editing. Oh dear Lord. Do you know?
I have no idea.
So hot dog was right, and correct me if I'm wrong here, friends in the chat room, was a one of the first web editors that you could use back in the late 90s. And it was, oh my gosh, old, hard to use. Wasn't my cup of tea, to be perfectly honest. I used VI, became Vim, and that's how I edited and wrote my first couple web pages. Yeah, hot dog was a little bit tricky to use. Electric Havoc says, I always recommend that folks default to mobile view and start developing there, and that's what Internet Explorer gets.
Yeah. So my last agency, we were on mobile first, so that's usually how I start as well. I think it just makes it really easy to develop out from that.
Now, I've heard some numbers floated, some statistics out there around the number of folks who are using mobile to browse the web versus desktop. Do you know what those percentages are? Do you have any idea, any feel for what they are right now?
I'm sure now mobile is probably way higher than desktop.
Okay.
Just with people on the go looking at sites on their phones, I feel like most of the time it's just hitting that versus actually sitting down at a computer.
Yeah, I know a few years ago the number in the States was around 50%, and I'm sure it's much higher overseas where access to smaller, cheaper phones is better. I know it was higher overseas, outside of the States. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, particularly if you're targeting folks overseas. Clark.io asks, is that where the hot dog theme came from for editors and IDEs? No. The hot dog theme in the editors and IDEs actually came from Windows 3.1. Oh, dear Lord.
Is that the really red one?
I've seen the red with the green.
I've seen it floating around on Twitter recently. They're saying like if your coworker leaves their computer open to like go ahead and change it.
Yes, change everything to the hot dog theme, and it's just loud and annoying. You have to wear sunglasses to look at your computer. It's so bright. Oh my gosh. Yes, hot dog was a WYSIWYG HTML editor. What you see is what you get. Very cool stuff. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kara. This has been great.
Thank you for having me.
And good luck with the rest of your CodeStock. Welcome to the speaker community, and we'll figure about getting you into another conference or two here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Take care. It's great talking to you. And I think we're going to have Denny come back in to wrap things up. This was great. Oh, my gosh. Come on in. Come on in. Sit down. We're going to go back to the beginning here. Throw back to where we started. My gosh, thank you so much for helping organize some of the guests we've had here. This was great. We got this great space here. I feel like we're in the CodeStock family room here with the fireplace behind us. Tremendous event here.
Thank you.
Really great speakers. The comments from folks in the chat room have been phenomenal. Loving the guests. Clark.io says many great guests today. Michael Jolly says, my 12-year-old daughter is a dancer into code, so that was right up her alley to hear from Kara. It's great to see these folks. You've got a great group of speakers here, different walks of life.
Yeah, and we really try to embrace that. And we also try to be sure that we always have some slots for newer speakers. Not only new speakers from Knoxville, but, like Kara, she's from Nashville. So that gives the ability for somebody to get a chance.
Yes.
And get into this phenomenal community of speakers that we have.
Oh, my gosh.
So.
And I love it when a plan comes together.
And we can have them all, join us and maybe she learns stuff from some of the more seasoned speakers. Okay, yeah, I'm seasoned, all right? I'm not going to say I'm an old guy.
I'm right there with you.
and right, hopefully they can go out and they can take their knowledge, the things they've learned, and influence other folks. To hear, somebody, their daughter, is into dancing and wants to learn more about it. There's somebody that could inspire.
Yeah. And one thing I've always liked to see is, especially when you have somebody that's seasoned, that then has a conversation with somebody who's newer to the industry and whatever they're doing, and then ideas start flowing. And you know what? I learn from them as well.
Yes,
always, and that's the thing I love about it.
I like talking about diversity and inclusion, and it's not just about folks with different colored skins and different genders, but it's also different ages. And we want to make sure the door is wide open for everybody.
Right.
And I love seeing that the door is wide open here in Knoxville for all kinds of folks to join in. And tremendous opportunities throughout the town, throughout the surrounding areas, and the state. It's terrific. You've built a really nice event here, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it again this year.
Well, we are thrilled to have you here, and thank you so much for being such a supporter of our community.
Absolutely. Now, I want to see if we have anybody out there. I think Robert Tables is going to be going live here in just a little bit. Is Robert, you about to start over there? Am I catching you right at the beginning of your stream? I want to make sure that we wrap up here from Nashville, and we can send folks over to Indianapolis there, where our friend Robert Tables streams from. Ancient Coder, she's out there in the UK, says great stuff. They're really enjoying the interviews that we've had here today. I'm going to take a quick peek. He starts in about 20 minutes, so I'll just wrap up here, and folks can go check out Robert Tables a little bit later. We had an announcement for a giveaway. We met a lot of great folks. Thank you again for having me. This is great. Thank you for joining us here on Twitch. I'll archive this video. We'll have it over on the YouTube channel in the next day or two. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here, and we'll catch you next time. Take care, everybody. We'll see you then.